All right, welcome everyone. We are going to get started in just 1 minute. Really quickly before we begin, Mrs. Let's see. Yeah, Mrs. Retzliff, I just saw your email. If you want me to switch your role to off camera, just let me know in the chat and I'll do that. I can do that in show for you if you would like. For everyone else, welcome to today's Geo Show. We have a very amazing virtual field trip for you all today to the country of South Korea as an introduction to Korean culture. So with that said, we're going to go ahead and start today's virtual field trip. And to do so, remember teachers and students, this is an interactive virtual field trip. That means you can participate in the show using Kahoot and Twitter live right here on the show. And the rest of the week, if you stump me with questions, which happens from time to time, I wish I knew everything, but I don't, I will post those questions that I find the answers to after the show over at Flipgrid. And you can also post your fun facts over at Flipgrid as well. Just find our grid, which is /GeoShow. You can use the hashtag GeoShow on Twitter to send in your text questions if you are watching off of camera today. You can also use the Zoom window that you're watching in right now on the top left-hand side of the screen. Today's Kahoot pin, if you missed it, I'll give this again throughout the show, but it's 791511. And you can play as a classroom or as individual students if you are one-to-one. Pay attention, explorers, because if you win today's Geo quiz at the end of the show on Kahoot, you'll get a postcard from me from the Learn Around the World Studios. And one more time, that's that Flipgrid URL at the bottom of your screen to continue the learning even when our virtual field trip is over. But my question for all of you explorers out there is that, are you ready to go to South Korea?
I don't mind small conversation.
All right, well, let's do it.
Thank you.
All right, so we are now watching the Geo Show. Today's show is titled Meet Korea, brought to you by Learn Around the World. Again, today's Kahoot game pin is at the top of your screen, 791511. And we're going to start off today's show with a survey question using our Kahoots. So go ahead and grab your devices if you're playing along with our interactive Kahoot questions during today's program. Just make sure that you get logged in before our Geo quiz towards the end of the show. Don't worry if you're not logged in yet, you will. These first couple questions are not worth points. Right there again on your center of your screen, 791511. Just go to kahoot.it on any web browser across any device, and it will link you right up. Please put a school-appropriate nickname in, guys, but we're going to go ahead because the show must go on and have our first survey question of the day. All right, explorers, what I want to know from all of you, we're going to South Korea on today's virtual field trip. Where is South Korea? What part of the world? Is it in red Europe, blue Asia, yellow Africa, or green South America? All right, most of you have that correct. South Korea is located in Asia, and the reason we have our survey questions is to survey you, of course, and to practice using that Kahoot before we get to our quiz. So just a reminder, if this is your first time playing along with GeoShow Kahoot, remember you only get 10 seconds to answer those questions, so be quick with your answers. All right, so we're going to go ahead and jump right into it. So we know we're going to Asia, but where exactly is South Korea located? And if you don't know, that's what we're going to talk about now, because you are watching the Geo Show, and the Geo Show is a geography-based show. That means location matters, explorers. So let's leave the United States of America, if that's where you are watching the show from today, and we're going to head to the other side of the Pacific Ocean. Now, before we zoom in closer to South Korea, let's go ahead and highlight a couple of surrounding countries that you may be familiar with. So I'm going to highlight a big old country to the left in red. This is China. And this country out here in the water, and these islands, this is Japan. So you may have heard of those two countries before. So South Korea is the peninsula that's located in between China and Japan. So peninsula, I'm going to highlight it right here, the Korean peninsula. And a peninsula, if you have forgotten or haven't learned it yet, explorers, is a body of land surrounded on three sides with water. So what water is this? Well, this number one over here is the Yellow Sea, and the number three over here is the East Sea, the East Sea. There are some people in Japan call it the Sea of Japan, but if you are going to Korea today, and it's known as the East Sea there. So we're going to zoom in. So it is a peninsula, and you may already know this, but there are two Koreas today. There's North Korea and South Korea. So unfortunately, the country had been one unified country for much, much longer than the United States, much older than the United States. So very, very long history there. But unfortunately, after World War II, it was split into two countries, and it still is that way today. But we are going to focus on the country of South Korea today. And as we zoom in a little bit closer here, went a little too far, just going to point out this city right here. This is Seoul, and this is the basically the dividing line between North and South Korea. And this is Seoul, the capital city of South Korea. And that's the location that we're visiting today. Just a couple of quick fun facts about South Korea. One is the official name of South Korea is the Republic of Korea. So South Korea is like a nickname. So many of you may be surprised to know, because America is such a well-known nickname, but it's not the name of your country. You live in the United States of America. There's no such thing as America. America is two continents. But it is a nickname, and same thing with South Korea. So the official name is the Republic of Korea. Right there in the center of your screen is the flag of South Korea. It's a white flag with a yin-yang symbol in the middle of it, with red and blue colors signifying fire and water. And then around each corner is a symbol that represents one of the elements found on Earth. Okay, so we have, how big is South Korea? Well, if you're watching from the United States, you may be more familiar with states, for example. So South Korea is roughly the size of the state of Indiana, which you see on the right there. Population-wise, even though it's kind of a small area of lands or small country, it's pretty densely populated, meaning there's lots of people living in the small area. If you look at the United States of America, to the right, there's roughly 320 million people and only 50 million in South Korea. But keep in mind, it's a much smaller piece of land. So if we look at California, for example, and California is way bigger than South Korea. California only has 38 million people, and California is one of the biggest states in the United States. So as far as population of people. So there's a lot of people that live in South Korea. So they have very densely populated cities. That means a lot of people living in a small area. And what even makes that more so is because of what kind of land is in South Korea. About 70% of South Korea is mountainous, meaning mountains. And so they don't have a lot of flat land for growing crops and for living in. So there are flat land areas that are more popular for growing crops like rice, for example. And then if we look here, just up here to the top, this is where Seoul is located, right here in the middle. And so Korea has provinces, not states. They have 9 provinces, and this is the province of Gyeonggi-do. And the majority of those 50 million people live in the Gyeonggi-do province. So most people in the country live in one small area of this small country. All right, so that's just a brief introduction of South Korea. We have 3 amazing topics to talk about today. 1 is modern culture, 2 is traditional culture, and 3 is Korean food. But before we jump into it, explorers, I always like to introduce our classroom guests right here on the GEOshow, and to give random shout outs. Before I introduce your class, just let me know, Mrs. Retzliff, I did get your email right as the show was starting, so if you guys want to be off camera, just let me know. I can switch that for you. But I'm going to go ahead and give our first random shout out today to Westerly Middle School in Rhode Island. Shout out to you guys over in Westerly. And also want to give a big old shout out to Lecanto Primary School down in Florida. So shout out to you guys down at Lecanto. And I want to go ahead and introduce our first on-camera classroom with us today, which is going to be Mr. Karstein's fourth graders in Mattawan, Michigan. Welcome to the show, guys. All right, and you guys are very excited today. Does anyone in your classroom have a fun fact you would like to share about South Korea today? Or North or anything?
Did you know South Korea gets most of its electricity from anthracite, a kind of hard coal?
Ooh, I did not know that. That's a great fun fact. See, even I learned stuff on the Geo Show. Isn't that awesome? All right, and our next guest classroom is Mrs. Retzliff's fifth graders from Wisconsin. Welcome to the show, guys. All right, and great to have you guys on the show again. And do you guys happen to have a fun fact about Korea today? Okay, no worries. And just come up with some awesome questions to make up for it as the show goes along. So we're going to jump right into it, Explorers. And today is exciting because today is a choose your own adventure show. So that means you get to decide what we talk about. There is no particular order of our discussion today. And you're going to do that right now using your devices. So if you are playing along using Kahoot, go ahead and grab your Kahoot devices. Again, that Kahoot pin is at the bottom left hand of your screen, 791. 511 791 511. We're going to go ahead and jump right into it. So remember those three topics: modern culture, traditional culture, and food. Well, which one do you want to discuss first? It's up to you. So choose our first topic, Explorers. Do you want to talk about red, modern culture, blue, food, or yellow, traditional culture? Ooh, first time this week that food did not win. That is awesome. Okay, so we're going to start with talking a little bit about modern culture today. So really briefly, before we jump into it, just a little bit of my background with South Korea. I lived in Korea for 3 whole years. I used to teach there. And so it's a country that I consider a very dear place to me. And so I will share what I learned living there. Keep in mind, I do not know everything about Korean culture, but I do know quite a bit. So I'll share everything that I know with you guys today. And we're going to jump right into talking a little bit about modern culture, and I'll end that with a little bit about school life and how some of my students experience school in the schools that I worked at. All right, so we're going to jump right into it, guys, and talking about modern culture. South Korea. So first of all, remember we talked about there's all these people that live in South Korea, and most of them live in cities, and they're densely populated cities. Because of that, today, most people live in apartments, not homes, like a house home. An apartment is a home, but not like in a house, which we'll see in our traditional culture there where they have more traditional houses. And so most people, we can see the skyline of a city right here, lots of high-rise apartments. So when you go to cities, you'll see big areas that aren't office buildings, but actually apartments. And this is what they look like. I lived in one of these as well, not quite that big. And one of the interesting things about these living in apartments is that how people move. So have you ever moved to a new house before? Do we have any explorers here that's changed homes at time to time? Yeah? Okay, do you guys like moving to a new house? No, it's not very fun. You know what's not very fun as well? Is moving in and out of an apartment, especially up and down many floors and going up and down elevators. Well, in South Korea, they have a unique way of moving, and they have these movers that you'll hire. They'll come to your house and they'll install this outdoor elevator. So they'll lift up this kind of like a big, almost like a ladder truck on like a fire truck, but it's got an elevator hooked up to it. And this is what it looks like. So they have a big old flat elevator on it, and they'll load it up with all of your furniture and clothes and all that good jazz, and they will lower it down to the truck to pack up. Or if you're moving in, they'll take it up to the window of your apartment. And it's really fast. I've seen them move entire families in like an hour or 2 hours. Don't worry, that is a car seat, but there's no baby in it. So I know what you're thinking. Okay, so what does it look like when they are installing these? Well, so a truck will come up. I'll turn that down. It's kind of loud. So a truck will come and they will extend it. Like I said, it's kind of like almost like a ladder truck of a fire truck, and they'll extend this very large elevator, and then they'll lower it and lean it right up against the window of your apartments. And that's how they move people in and out of apartments. And it's really, really quick and efficient. Okay, so talking about culture, what about entertainment? So Korea is not only famous inside of Korea, obviously, but also around Asia. Korea is like the epicenter. That means they're like the center of entertainment in Asia. So Korean dramas, K-pop, Korean music, very popular in many Asian countries. Even in the U.S., I know have lots of friends that are big K-drama fans. Reality TV shows. So this was a really popular one when I was living there called Running Man, which has some comedians. It's kind of like a reality. They send them to different places around Korea, even outside the country, and they do like challenges, and it's just a funny show. And then the movies, obviously, they have lots of great movies as well. Cool thing about going to the movies in South Korea is unlike most of the movie theaters I've been to in the U.S. all my life is that they have assigned seats. So what's really cool is when you go buy your tickets, you can do it from a person, or some of the other bigger movie theaters like this, they have kiosks. So you can go in there and actually look at it and choose your own thing. That usually works better than me trying to use it. I promise it did work, and I did get my ticket. But you can go choose where you want to sit, and it's awesome because you only show up like a minute before the movie starts, and you get to sit. If you chose a seat right in the middle where I like to sit, then you don't have to get there like 20 minutes before the movie starts. And they don't really show a lot of previews either. I've saw maybe like one, but most movies don't even show previews. The movie just starts at 1 o'clock if it says it's starting at 1 o'clock, which is amazing. We talked about K-pop, or I mentioned it earlier. So K-pop is a popular type of music, of Korean pop music, and it's really dominated by boy and girl groups. Now, they do have solo singers, but the groups seem to be more popular. These were some popular ones when I was living there. So Super Junior, Big Bang, BAP. What was really huge, EXO was like really blowing up when my last year living in Korea. My middle schoolers just loved EXO, at least the girls did. And girl groups also, Girls' Generation, Wonder Girls, or some older ones, but they have as well. Now, the styles that you see in K-pop are just really really out there sometimes. This guy is named G-Dragon. All these pictures are the same person. And maybe your teachers will know what I'm talking about. Maybe they can explain to some of you guys if you never heard of Justin Timberlake. So when he was part of the boy group NSYNC in the U.S., this is kind of similar. So G-Dragon was with Big Bang, and he kind of did a solo thing. But you get to see all his different styles and just kind of all over the place. Do we have anyone here that's ever seen the Gangnam Style song or heard it? Okay. So if you guys, did anyone like Gangnam Style? Can anyone do the dance? All right. So what's really cool about Gangnam Style is it actually has a good message to it. Not a lot of people know this in the United States. But what he's doing is he's poking fun of people trying to have Gangnam Style. And what does that mean? Well, Gangnam is a area inside of Seoul. So Seoul is the capital city, the largest city in Korea. And right here, the yellow shaded, so this is a kind of a diagram of Seoul. There's a river that runs right through Seoul, and river is called Hong. And so right down here, so Gangnam, or sorry, Gang is river. So Gangnam means south of the river. So it's this area right here south of the river is Gangnam, and it's like the Beverly Hills of Seoul. So really expensive area to live in, and so in the song he's making fun of people that go and try to have Gangnam style. So they'll go drink $20 lattes, but they eat ramen noodles for dinner. All right, so school. So I get lots of questions. What is school life like in Korea? Well, first off, if we look here on the right, these were some of my middle schoolers. And so you wear uniforms in South Korea. I don't think I ever saw a school where they did not wear uniforms. So everyone wears uniforms. And does everyone see what they're doing here? What are they doing?
What are they doing?
Any guesses? Let's go over to Michigan. What do you guys think? What are they doing? What does it look like? Cleaning. Do you guys clean your own school? No? Well, guess what? If you went to school in South Korea, you would clean your school. So every Friday, you would clean your classrooms, you would clean the bathrooms, and once in a while, so maybe once every month or 2 months, you would actually go outside and do yard work around the school. Does that sound like fun? No? What does our teachers think? Do you think that's a good idea?
Yes.
Yeah. And so, right. So if you were a student in South Korea, so as we're going to learn when we talk a little bit about traditional homes, but I can go ahead and tell you now, when you go into buildings in South Korea, you take off your shoes. So you don't wear shoes inside. And this is true for schools. So you don't wear shoes in your classrooms. You don't wear shoes in restaurants. You don't wear shoes in people's homes. You take your shoes off. And most people have like slippers that you can wear around inside, like indoor slippers. But because of that, you're wearing school uniforms. You take off your shoes. So really, students really kind of show their personality with their socks. So the sock game in Korea is really amazing. All right. So, can you guys hear me? Yeah? Okay. And couple outfits. So couple outfits are popular in Korea with people in relationships. So this sounds kind of weird to, I would say, to people in the United States that wouldn't go around dressing, like your parents wouldn't walk around dressing in couple outfits. But in Korea, it's popular to wear couple outfits. So almost everything sold, like jackets, shoes, everything is sold in, like, you have a couple option. And even not just clothes, but movie theater seats, watches, even cell phones. So you can get the same cell phone number separated by one number with your girlfriend or boyfriend or wife or husband. And that's just a little bit, little intro into some of the modern culture in Korea. And we'll go ahead and open it up for some questions. So let's go over and head over to Rhode Island. Do you guys have any, sorry, not Rhode Island, Wisconsin. Do you guys have any questions over in Wisconsin? No? All right. Do you guys have any questions down in Michigan?
Yeah, go ahead, Brady.
When did the Korea War end?
The Korean War, see, right off the top of my head, it was in the 50s. I'll have to fact check the dates of the Korean War. I have it on my other presentation. We're not focusing as much on the Korean War with this episode, but it was, I want to say 56. I'll double check it for you. But the Korean War lasted for about 3 years. And was when the North Koreans, so right after World War II, if you're a little confused about it, so Korea was one country. And what happened was Korea was kind of annexed, so they were taken in by the Japanese during World War II, meaning their country was taken from them, and the Japanese were ruling over them. So when the Japanese lost the Pacific in World War II, the Russians came from the top part of the land, and the U.S. troops landed in South Korea, and they kind of met in the middle, and they divided the country into two and installed their own two governments. And it's kind of unfortunate that the entire country wasn't given back to Korea. So yeah, it's kind of a complicated history and very unfortunate because Korea has such a long history and it should have never been split into two to begin with. And that decision was decided by the U.S., Russia, China, and Great Britain. So those four countries actually made that decision, and it's unfortunate that that happened. Kyle wants to know down in Florida, where do they keep their shoes when they take their shoes off? Great question. So it depends on the school. For example, my wife worked in a school where they took their shoes off right when you walked into the school. So in the hallways and everything, there were little cubbies right when you walked into the door to put your shoes. My school, my middle school, the hallways were kind of like an outside area. So you only took your shoes off when you went into a particular classroom. So the hallways you could wear your shoes in, but everyone, they would line their shoes up on the outside of the classroom. So just depends on the school. Great question there. We're going to go ahead and jump into another topic so we can keep things moving along. And to do that, we are going to jump over to Kahoot. And if you're playing along, make sure you get logged in. If you've misplaced it, that Kahoot pin is right at the bottom of your screen there, 791-511. Again, 791-511. All right, so explorers, it's that time to choose your own adventure again. So you get the choice this time of food or traditional culture. All right, so either red, traditional culture, or yellow, food. All right, everyone's saying, we want to talk about food now. Well, great choice. So as we jump into our food topic, if you're watching and you're not on camera and you want to get your questions in, don't forget, send them in early and often so they get up to us. And also, you can also use Twitter. So if you use Twitter and you like to roam around your classroom, just make sure you use the hashtag GEOshow. Use the hashtag GEOshow. All right, so we're going to go ahead and jump in and talk about some Korean food. So an introduction to Korean food. First, I have a question for all of you guys, and that is, which one of these are Korean chopsticks? So many countries in Asia, especially eastern part of Asia, use chopsticks when they eat, not a fork and a knife, for example. So which one of these, and they do not all look the same, or are made out of the same things. Which one of these are Korean chopsticks? Is it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or 6? Oh, I just gave it away. So if you chose 5, you are correct. So if we look at the differences between these, there's a couple things to note. One is Korean chopsticks are made of metal. And as we see right here down to the right. Also, when you have a place setting in Korea, you typically get a spoon always served as well. This is unlike other countries. And the reason is in Korea, almost every meal, a soup is served with almost every meal. And the other thing is, if we were to look at the bottom of a pair of chopsticks, typically they would be like a cube or square shape or round shaped. But in Korea, they're actually flat shaped, like over here on the left. So they're flats, and this makes it difficult to learn how to use them at first. But once you get the knack for it, I actually prefer Korean chopsticks now over other chopsticks because they can kind of, when you get good at using them, they kind of slide together, kind of like a pair of scissors. So you can kind of slide them really easily and really get a hold of really small things. I like them now. I didn't like them at first, but so to each his own. All right, so other things about Korean food. And one is that you eat family style in Korea. So what that means is usually there's one main course or dish for the table, or you can get a few different ones, and everyone just eats from that. And there are also many sides served at a traditional meal in Korea. Sometimes traditionally, you can have up to 20, 30, 40 different sides with your main course. And one of the reasons is because of this side right here, which is kimchi. Can everyone say kimchi? Kimchi! All right, now kimchi, there's different kinds of kimchi. In fact, there's over 300 kinds of kimchi. Kimchi is really a process of making food, not really one particular type of food. And what does that mean? Well, I usually tell people it's like pickles. Do we have any fans of pickles here? Anyone like pickles? Yeah? Okay, does anyone know what vegetable is usually are pickles made out of? Cucumbers, right. So did you know like pickling is a process? So you can pickle anything. You can pickle like garlic, you can pickle beans, so you can have like dilly beans. There's all sorts of things you can pickle, but when we think of pickles, when we use just the name pickles, we think of pickled cucumbers. Same thing with kimchi. There's over 300 kinds of kimchi. You can have all kinds of different kinds of kimchi, but when we think of kimchi, most people think of this cabbage form of kimchi. This is the national dish of Korea. It's served with every meal, and often people say when you vote on healthiest foods in the world, it's commonly voted on one of the top 5 healthiest foods in the world. That's because it's a fermented food. That means it has really healthy probiotics in it when it ferments. And what is a eating experience like in Korea? Well, first off, when you go into a restaurant, most restaurants are themed, meaning you go to like a beef restaurant or you go to a pork restaurant. Does anyone have a guess? What kind of restaurant is this? Chicken or duck. If you said duck, this is like a cartoon duck on the door. And so, yeah, this is a duck restaurant. So we're going to go in this duck restaurant. Remember, you take your shoes off. So that earlier question we had, where do you put your shoes? Well, typically there's a room. This is the same thing with homes as well. There's usually a smaller room in a small home, obviously. This is a big restaurant, but usually you take your shoes off. There's either shelves. If it was very crowded, there would be just shoes all on the floor around the edge as well. And you go into the restaurant. Not only do you take off your shoes, but you also sit on the floor. And this restaurant is actually weird because they have these little back chairs, these floor back chairs. Normally they do not have these little back chairs at restaurants. Normally it's just a little cushion you can put down, or most Korean people don't even use the cushion. And what's unique about a lot of Korean restaurants is Korean barbecue is really famous. And one of the things, so this is a duck barbecue place. And so does anyone have a guess? What are these kind of things hanging down over the tables? Right, they're like a vent. So if you're familiar, like the vent that's over like the stove at your house, this is kind of like a smaller one. And the reason is because right here you cook right at your table at a Korean restaurant most of the time. Not everyone, but most of them you do. And so you do that by one of 2 ways. One is charcoal. So you see that charcoal being lit up right there in the back, or you can do it with gas. And this particular restaurant, this is a different restaurant, has gas. And as we get a look up under the table, you can actually see that flame going in there. Now you have to be careful, explorers, when you go to some restaurants in Korea, because if you get too close, you can see this person's knee right here. If you hit your knee right there, you can actually burn your knee. And so it's have to be careful. All right, so again, usually at a restaurant, this is my favorite Korean meal right here. It's called dakgalbi. It's like a marinated spicy chicken and cabbage and all sorts of good stuff. And everyone around the table eats out of the main dish. Now, you may have your own little side dish of rice or something else. And another interesting thing about eating in restaurants in Korea is this little guy right here. So many restaurants have these little red-looking things on their table. Does anyone have a guess what this little button-looking thing is? It is a button, but what do you think that button is for? What happens when you push it? Right. So it's like a doorbell. So when you hit it a big, usually it sounds like a doorbell. It's like ding dong, and the waitress or waiter comes to you. Now, I think this is brilliant. I wish we had this in the United States because many times you're waiting to get your water filled or you want something and no one is in sight. Well, in Korea, you just hit this button and they come to you. And if they don't have the button, a lot of older restaurants won't have a button. You just yell across the restaurant. Now, is it really polite to yell across a restaurant in the United States? No, probably not. So it's probably not polite if you go to a restaurant and yell across the room saying, "Hey, waiter, come over here. I need something," you know? Well, in Korea it is. And so you just yell out. And the way you do that is you say jogi or jogyo. Can you guys say jogyo? All right, so you just literally yell out across the restaurant, jogyo. It means over here, I need something. Okay? And so when you hit the button, they will come and bring you whatever you want. And this is one of my favorite things to eat in Korea. Again, is dak galbi. And at the end of it, you eat something called cheesy bop, or you can, something I really love. Now, bop is an interesting word in Korean. Can you guys say bop? Okay, bop has two meanings. Bop means food, like all food. So when you talk about food, you can talk about bop. Or bop means rice. So cheesy bop is cheesy rice. So what you do is you kind of fry up in the leftover marinated juices and everything from your chicken marinade. They kind of fry up that rice and some cheese, and it's just super good. And right now, I just want to go to Korea and eat that. So that's a typical experience at a Korean restaurant. And we're going to go ahead and have some other areas that we can jump into if we have more time at the end of the show. But we'll do one for now. And I'll go ahead and let you guys choose. Let's get our guys over in Michigan. Let's do a little more in depth about a different topic with food. So do you want to talk about candy and snacks, kind of Korean version of of Western foods? So East meets West, traditional foods, weird foods, or hot and spicy foods? What do you guys think? All right, I'm hearing a lot of candy shout outs. So we're going to talk about some candy. All right, always a great topic to talk about. So candy and snacks. So when you go into like a convenience store, you're going to see lots of chewing gum, lots of gum, mints, and all sorts of good stuff. Now, here's something interesting. We'll go back here really quickly. So when you go into a store in Korea, does everyone see this? When you look at the prices down here, it says right here in the circle, 2 plus 1. Any guesses what that means?
$3.
Right. Well, you get not 2 for 1, but it's buy 2 get 1 for free. So what's common in Korea when you go shopping, you'll see like 1 plus 1. That means buy 1 get 1 free. So if you ever see that plus 1, that's what it means. Is you buy whatever the first number is, and you get that 1 for free. So that's something interesting there. And remember earlier we were talking about living on a peninsula, and because they're surrounded by seas and ocean, then that means seafood is very popular in Korea, a very big part of Korean food. And because of that, you even see that in the snacks. So we see shrimp flavored chips, and even over here on the right, like everyone see this little character down here? Anyone have a guess? What kind of animal is that? Squid. Have you guys ever had squid flavored chips? No. So it's not something that's common in the U.S., but in Korea, these are fairly common. Some things you guys might be used to: Reese's, Snickers, Kit Kats, Twix, Hershey's. So lots of things that you would find in the U.S. as well. And this is interesting when we talk about just different forms of English around the world. But these snacks right here, if we look down on the left, we see like these little kind of chewy bear things. What do you usually call those? Gummy bears. Well, in Korea, they don't call them gummies. Instead, they call them jellies. You see the top right up there? So they would say if someone offered you a jelly, it's more like a gummy bear. So they wouldn't say gummy bear. Little interesting thing there. And here's one. This is a Korean snack food. It's called pepero. It's like poke, if you know what poke are. And so it's a long like cookie that's dipped in chocolate. So the original one is this one in red over here. And it's really popular in Korea. In fact, it's so popular that they have their own holiday. And often in Korea, do you guys like ramen noodles? Some people yes, some people no. Well, look, you go to Korea, it's not just the chicken, beef, and like shrimp flavored of top ramen that you see in your grocery store typically. They are entire aisles with all different kinds of flavored and spices ramen noodles, and it's a higher quality. It's so much better than the instant ramen that is common, like the top ramen that you find. And so it's common because many students go to, you may be surprised to hear this, but many students go to class, they go to regular school until, depending on your age, to around 3 to 5 o'clock in the afternoon. And then usually you'll go into a convenience store like this, eat some ramen noodles, and then you go back to private academy. And many students are in class until 8, 9, 10 o'clock at night. And because of that, right after school, you'll see lots of students in convenience stores eating ramen really quickly before going to their like math academy or English academy or science academy. And again, lots and lots of ramen, different types of ramen. And some soft drinks or colas or soda, whatever. I don't know what you guys say. What do you guys say pop in Michigan? Yeah. All right. So different kinds of pop then. And so Coca-Cola, Sprite, Red Bull, or just some brief little look at some of the different types of candy. Remember that pepero I was telling you about? Well, because it's shaped like the number 1, well, on November 11th, so coming up pretty soon, is a holiday. It's kind of like not an official holiday, but most people celebrate it. It's kind of like a Pepero Day is on 11/11, and you see it because of the shape of it. And what you do is you just exchange peperos with your friends. So the boxes have like a to and a from on the back of it. It's kind of like Valentine's Day, and you give like candy and stuff to your friends. So you exchange candy gifts at school. Same thing there. So on Pepero Day, all the stores, you can buy all kinds of peperos. People make homemade peperos, and it's fun. All right, so we're going to go ahead and let's pause right there and open it up for question. Let's go up to Michigan. Do you guys have a question for us?
Jeremy, go ahead. Get up there.
Did Genghis Khan go through South Korea?
Is what?
Did Genghis Khan go through South Korea?
Did he go through South Korea? The Mongolians did conquer South Korea and North Korea. At that time, it wasn't South and North, but yes, the Mongolians did at one point. The kind of unfortunate history with Korea, if you look at so we like to talk about locations on the Geo Show, and so if we look at different places, it's hard to see on my globe there. But remember earlier we were talking about being in between China and Japan. Well, some other big countries. We have Russia that is right next to it. And at the time when Genghis Khan, Mongolia, extremely powerful country to say the least at that time. So Korea has just been invaded just hundreds and hundreds of times by other countries. And so they've just been this small country sandwiched in between all these big, powerful countries. So for a very long time, North Korea's kind of called it today, but for a long time, even all of Korea was called the Hermit Kingdom because they really did not trust foreigners because they were always getting invaded throughout their entire history. And so they didn't they just kind of excluded themselves from other countries, and they had the nickname the Hermit Kingdom. All right, great question though. And let's go ahead. Let's jump right into really quickly because I do want to share a little bit about traditional culture, and we're getting close to the end of our time, so we want to give everyone a chance to play that Geo quiz. So let's go ahead and jump right into it. And just to briefly share some traditional things with you about South Korea. So first off is the traditional homes. We've been talking about, we talked about modern homes of people living in apartments. Well, traditionally, people lived in traditional homes called hanuks. Can you guys say hanuk? Okay, there are different styles where you could have different styles of roofs, for example. This has a tiled roof. Here's a thatch roof, a different design. And it's always fun to talk about bathrooms. And so you can see here, and so you see there's no seats. Well, this is a traditional bathroom where there would be just a hole, but you just squat over the hole. Well, even today, even when it's like a porcelain hole, they still have what I like to call squatty potties in Korea. So you actually squat, and it's not a seat like you would sit in on probably at your school. However, they do have Western style toilet seats. So usually when you go in a bathroom, if there's like 5 stalls, there'll be like maybe 1 or 2 Western style seats, and then like 3 squatty potties. And so those are fun to always talk about bathrooms. This is something really interesting and unique about Korea, and it's their home heating. So they have a very unique kind of floor heating, and this is how it worked in traditional homes, but these are called ando floor heating. Can you guys say ando? Okay, ando heating. The way it worked is really cool, guys. Here's how it works. So, like normally, when you had like your kitchen where you would cook your food, you would cook on a fire. And normally, when we have a fire, the chimney goes like up out of the top of the house, right? When we think about homes, maybe in the U.S., well, they were designed differently in Korea. Instead of going straight up, it went under the entire house and out the other side. Why did they do that? Well, the reason they did that is because it would heat up the floor, and it would heat up, they put these stones under the floor, and it would heat up these stones, and the stones would stay hot for a really long time, even after the fire goes out. So because of that, the floors are actually really super warm, which is really good for Korea because Korea in the winter is very cold and windy. And this is the reason why we think about sitting on the floor. It's very warm to sit on the floor in the wintertime. This is just a different picture from like a top view of a floor. So this is why I was telling you about spacing those rocks out. Now these would be under the floor, and you can kind of see it right here on the bottom diagram as well. And those rocks is what would actually heat up from the smoke and hot air going under the floor. And so this is what a traditional kitchen would look like. So you would have either, if it's a smaller home, 1, maybe 2 places to cook your food there. You would start a wood fire under here, and again, that smoke would go out the other end. This is a different style of traditional home. This is a mountain style where there was bark on the roof and not a thatch or tile roof. And this kitchen was located outside, but you can see here, we'll get a peek up under, and you can kind of see where we go up under here. So when the fire is going, it kind of exits out of those 2 holes at the top of your screen. It goes under the entire house, heats up those stones, and out the other side through one of these, which is the chimney that would be on the other side of the house, and the smoke would come out of there. Very, really genius style of floor heating called ando heating. When we talk about clothes in Korea, so we're going to talk about some of the Korean dress, but traditionally they were made of silk. And so silk is a material that traditionally comes from Asia. And does anyone know, where does silk come from?
Worms.
Right. So I heard some people say worms. So these are silkworms, and we get to see those Korean chopsticks in action as well. But the way you would do it is they would harvest the cocoons, so the silk right here. You can kind of see them harvesting the silk from each one of the silkworms. And I'll turn it up if you've never heard Korean speak.
이거 맞아요.
기름이 세지. 맞네. 기름이 쓰네. 기름 써요. 이거 익으니까 해요. 이것도.
다 물량인가?
아니야, 얘도 자식이 있어. 진짜요?
All right, so those are silkworms, and I'll show you those dresses, but first, some of the traditional music. So this is a procession that's going to come by, and so I want you to notice lots of percussion, and then watch their heads. They do something really cool with their heads as well. All right, you can see them right here. When you swing your head back and forth, they do really cool kind of dancing ribbon dances with the ribbons that are attached to some of their hats. And some people really do really awesome ones, like really jumping around and twisting with their heads. And this is something really cool called Juotagi. So it's kind of like slacklining, if you know what slacklining is today, or tightrope walking. And so it's a performance where a performer would walk across, bounce up and down on the rope. And many times, at least today, when you go to places to watch them, they're kind of like a comedy act as well. So they'll be telling jokes, and it's just a performance, right? All right, see them bouncing up and down there. Also, remember, we're going to talk about the traditional dress, and we'll show you some of those. And right here, so traditional dresses are called hanboks. Can you guys say hanbok? Okay, so these were the first year I taught in Korea, I taught kindergarten. These were my kindergartners. And so this is when they dressed up for one of the biggest holidays called Chuseok, which is actually this week, guys. So happy Chuseok to everyone. And Chuseok right there, so October 2nd to October 6th. And Chuseok is a harvest holiday. So like most cultures around the world, when we harvest food in the fall, and most people have a celebration during the fall season, in Korea, it's Chuseok. And this is one of the two biggest holidays. The other one is the Lunar New Year. And I say lunar and Chuseok, they both follow the moon cycle, not the normal or the calendar that you guys know of and use in school. So different calendars, the moon cycle. So last year, for example, Chuseok happened in mid-October. This year, mid-September. This year it's early October because you're going on the moon cycle. All right, and that is some traditional culture. We're going to jump right into, if you have time to stick around and answer questions, great. We're going to jump right into that Geo quiz in case anyone needs to go ahead and head out early. And we want to make sure you have the opportunity to play our quiz to try to win your postcard today. Don't forget that you can log right into Kahoot.it. Every question from here on out is worth points, so make sure you get logged in. That game pin today is 791511. Again, 791511. All right, and here we go. Okay, what is Korea's national dish? What is their national food? Is it red kimchi, blue pizza, yellow pepper, or green barbecue? All right, it is kimchi. Great job, guys. Okay, the winners are in the lead. Well, that is very presumptuous, the winners. Okay, Korean chopsticks are made of wood or metal? Red metal, blue wood. All right, the winners still in the lead, followed by Pandy Corn. That's an awesome name. All right, next question. At home, Koreans traditionally sit on red tables, blue chairs, yellow the floor, or green beds. All Right, on the floor. Even sleeping, guys, traditionally, and even still today, most Koreans, a lot of Koreans sleep on the floor, not like a bed. Sometimes it's like kind of like a pad they'll roll out, or like just like a quilt. The winners are still leading. Chase in second place. What is South Korea's official name? Is it the United Korean States, Blue Republic of Korea, Yellow Democratic People's Republic of Korea, or Green Korea? All right, it is Republic of Korea. Great job. The winners still in the lead. MK takes second. All right, guys, last question. Make it count. Korean floor heating is called red Ando heating, blue kimbap, yellow bop, or green mul. All right, Ando, and today's winner is dun 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 dun, dun. Not showing it there. The winners, great job, the winners. So if you are the winner's teacher, please make sure you get me your school's address, and you can only do that in only one place this year, and that is over at learnaroundtheworld.com/prize. Right at the bottom of your screen, just go to our website /prize. There's a Google form. Stick that address in there, and I will get your snail mail out to you every Wednesday, guys. And if you want to continue questions or you have fun facts you would like to share about Korea throughout the week, go to flipgrid.com/GEOshow and share it there. And that's going to wrap it up for today's lesson. Looks like they're heading out in Matawan. And let's see, over in, I guess, is it Buffalo Lake? Are you guys still with us? Do you have any questions? Would you like to send any into us? And I don't see any here. Check Twitter one last time. All right, looks like everyone's headed out for the day, so we're going to go ahead and end today's broadcast. Thank you so much for everyone out there watching to our live broadcast or in the webinar with us. Don't forget, it's a great big world out there, so keep exploring. Bye, guys.